So for all those who have landed up on this video, this is our English review of the Micromax in Note 1. अगर आप इसी वीडियो को हिंदी में देखना चाहते हो, there's a card popping up right now. Now let's get down to my English review of the Micromax in Note 1. Now I wanted to start off this review by ranting about the whole Chini marketing tactic used by Micromax in the pre-launch activities for the in Note 1, where it was obliquely aimed at the Chinese smartphone brands in our country. The rhetoric was blatant. Milk the burning wave of nationalism to intend to kick out the Chinese players from our country. Now, if you ask me, that messaging was taking things a bit too far. However, I took a step back to realize that I was possibly being naive. What better way to actually promote a product, an Indian product in our country, than to stroke the jingoistic tendencies of our people? It is a proven method for success, and it's not like Micromax hasn't done this before. Back in 2016, Micromax was the one that made that Kapil Sharma ad with the whole hashtag Angrezi Panti trend. Now Micromax is doing the same thing with the in Note 1's promotion in 2020. But does all that matter? Absolutely not. All that initial hype will lead to nothing if the product is no good. So is the Micromax in Note 1 worth your money and of course time as well? And are my observations with the phone and with the time with the phone that I've had any different from the kind of negative feedback that is coming from the retail units out there? Well, that's what I'm here to answer. I'm going to cut through all the noise and give you guys my full detailed and honest review of the Micromax in Note 1. I'm a shot from MySmartPrice. Let's get this video started. But before we move on, don't forget to hit that red subscribe button and the bell icon right next to it to get notified whenever MySmartPrice puts out an awesome new tech video. The in Note 1's design follows the same tropes promulgated by Chinese brands to begin with. The plastic back has a flashy gradient design with a box-shaped OnePlus 80-ish camera module. This module juts out of the rear and wobbles on a surface. Anyway, the back has this X-shaped pattern that plays peekaboo with the light and is only visible at certain angles. Also, the in logo at the bottom looks deceptively similar to LinkedIn's logo. So much so that a few people actually thought that LinkedIn was making a phone. Furthermore, on the rear you get a physical fingerprint scanner. It's not the fastest, but fast enough and effective at unlocking the phone. There's also the slightly more insecure face unlock mechanism, and that is fast too. What I like about the design is the back curves gently into the plastic frame, making it very comfortable to hold and use. Although yes, it is not a unibody design because the display sits on a separate frame that protrudes a fair bit on the front. You can feel the step design distinctly. The edge of the display frame has a pretty sharp fall, and I'd have preferred a 2.5D curved design for a smooth transition while sliding from the display to the frame. Moving on, you get a power button and a volume rocker on the right edge. There's also a Google Assistant button on the left one. Yup, you read that right, I like it. All of these offer pretty good tactile feedback and a nice clicky sound when pressed. At the bottom you get the 3.5mm jack, a Type-C port and a single mono speaker. The Type-C port is of the USB 2.0 spec for those who are wondering, so you won't be able to do any HDMI streaming. By the way, the left edge is where you'll find the tray with two dedicated slots for nano SIM cards and a slot for the micro SD card. Honestly, the in Note 1's ergonomics are great, and I particularly like the fact that Micromax has managed to keep the weight to below 200 grams. However, the overall build quality of the phone has been a little bit circumspect. Now, I did hear a slight creaking noise when the rear panel was pressed lightly. You know what, I'll make you listen to it. Having said that, our phone has held up fairly tightly and it has been intact for the duration of our review. But of course, there are quite a few videos out there talking about issues with the construction of the phone. So that's something that you have to keep in mind. Now, with that in mind, we could be looking at quality control issues. Thankfully, Micromax has been pretty proactive about addressing issues. I mean, of course, with the software. Now, I don't know how it'll do with the hardware. But, if Micromax can get to the bottom of that, that'd be great. All said and done, I'd suggest that you use the phone with a case because that's important. This is a plastic body. You don't want to break it. The in Note 1 has an IPS LCD panel, and I'm glad that unlike many brands in this segment, Micromax doesn't scrimp out on the display resolution. You get a proper FHD plus resolution with 60Hz refresh rate and not just a paltry 720p setting. Unfortunately, I couldn't get the make of the glass protection on top of the display. However, it does seem to be pretty resistant to scratches in the limited time that I have spent with it. There are a few things you should know though. Despite offering FHD plus resolution, Micromax hasn't acquired the wideband L1 certification, which means you're going to end up streaming HD plus resolution on Prime, Netflix, Hotstar and more. That said, the panel itself has a peak brightness of 450 nits and remains fairly legible even under harsh sunlight. However, as is the case with most stock Android phones I've used, the adaptive brightness setting is pretty erratic. There were times when it got too bright indoors or too dull outdoors. The thing with most budget phones is brands use inferior quality LCD panels with light bleed around the edges, and I'm super happy to report that Micromax in Note 1 is actually one of the cleaner panels I've used in this price range. I faced no light bleeds or color shifts either. Plus the default temperature was close to neutral. The display is one of the stronger points of the In Note 1, but adding wideband L1 would have definitely sweetened the deal. I hope you are watching this, Micromax. On the flip side, the oleophobic coating on the In Note 1 is way better than some Realme phones that I've tested in the past, so that's really great. Now, one reason why I'd recommend the Micromax in Note 1 to anyone is the near stock Android experience that you get with it. It's lightweight and completely free of bloatware. So, it doesn't take up too much of your internal storage either. Now, I say near stock Android experience primarily because there are a few alterations that you should know. For example, the quick settings UI in the notifications shade looks different. Additionally, there is an intelligent assistance feature here that gives you a host of gesture-based features and more. The 3-finger screenshot from this feature set was faced with some controversy. Essentially, switching it on meant the display would lose its multi-touch capability. Thankfully, a simple software update fixed the problem. Micromax was quick to address the issue. Plus, the update also brought along with it the November security patch. Not bad, Micromax. Not bad at all. Also, I faced no other bugs as such. That said, a few things did irk me, especially some of the visual elements and the UI design are an eyesore. For example, the clock on the top bar sticks too close to the corner and there's not enough padding. The font on the VoWiFi icon is stretched too and it doesn't look similar to the font used in the other parts of the UI. Certain apps with long names in the app drawer cause a line break and causing a single letter to move to the second line. If you're even a little serious about design, you're going to find this super irritating like I did. If not, this won't matter to you. Now my question to Micromax is, why fix something that ain't broke? All these alterations, all these forced alterations only break away from the otherwise refined experience of stock Android. Now, if Micromax was trying to build their own visual identity, they might have to relook at the entire approach because these tiny changes are completely breaking away from the experience. Now, these observations of mine are basically nitpicks and not many people will care about it, that's for sure. And what I really like about the phone is that, the stock Android experience is actually pretty stockish and, it feels good to use as well. And most importantly, you don't get ads like you do on certain Redmi phones. So that's definitely a relief. Good job, Micromax. The In Note 1 has 4 cameras on the rear, a 48 megapixel main sensor, 5 megapixel ultra wide, 2 megapixel macro and depth. The camera performance was very erratic and not very reliable. There were times when I could take good pictures, but those situations were far and few in between. Let me break down my shooting experience with the In Note 1. In daylight shots, you will find muted colors from the camera, and these are unnatural colors, mind you. Plus, you will notice a lot of oversharpened details as well when you pixel peep. Micromax could have toned down on the oversharpening. Most pictures end up looking unnatural again as a result. Furthermore, in many conditions you will notice overblown highlights as well. Also, please note that if you have a moving subject, you will almost always get blurred shots. The phone has slow focusing speeds is what I noticed. Interestingly, Micromax doesn't give you an auto HDR option, and it makes sense considering I really don't understand what HDR does to images here. It picks up the blues of the skies in this shot, that's it. There are no visible changes to the highlights and the shadows. Looks like the multi-stack processing is not working really well. The 5MP ultra-wide-angle camera is a major letdown. Not only does it look flat, lifeless and noisy, there is no color science consistency either. The details are pretty soft and seriously, if I had to use this phone, I'd never use the ultra-wide camera. The 2 megapixel macro camera can take fairly crisp macros as you would expect from such a sensor. I have no complaints here as such. I quite like the facial tones on my portrait sample, but the edge detection is a bit too aggressive. Interestingly, I had to take the portraits in aperture mode, and in this mode the camera defaults to 48 megapixel res. At full res there is no over sharpening and I love that. So if you get ample light, you can possibly get good portrait shots of humans from the phone, and of course, I would suggest you use the 48MP mode instead. Selfies offer good facial tones in daylight shots. In fact, low light selfies are fairly good too, but indoor selfies look too muted and over sharpened. Plus, the selfie camera cannot do any sort of dynamic range correction, which means that highlights are blown out, as you can see in this picture. Selfie portraits are oddly softer in details, but the edge detection is not too shabby. One area where the camera surprised me is with its low light performance. The night mode is actually pretty decent. The algorithm works around the limitations of the sensor and makes good looking images. The night mode doesn't focus on only making the pictures bright, it fixes the flaws in the regular shots. For example, in this shot, you can clearly see that the overexposed Diwali lights on the building have been fixed to look good. However, when it gets too dark, as you can see in the second low light sample, the night mode adds green aberration to the noise. But that's part and parcel of a budget camera experience, so cannot really complain. In video recording, the In Note 1 takes a drastic hit. You don't get any stabilization in 1080p 30fps videos, plus the audio recording is really bad. The details are soft and you can notice noise in the shadows as well. This is definitely not a good video shooting experience on the phone. The colors from the front camera's video recording is alright. The facial tones are especially great, but again, there is no stabilization on offer and the audio recording quality is not very good either.
कैसे लगा आपको quality आप जरूर comments बता दीजिएगा. I'll definitely give you my opinion as well.
Now, a few of these issues that I've mentioned about the camera experience can be fixed with a software update. I hope Micromax can do that for the In Note 1, but quite a few of the other issues are also hardware related. For example, the ultra wide angle problem. So that has to be fixed in the next iteration of the phone for sure. Maybe if some enterprising stole is working on a Gcam build for the Micromax In Note 1, then you could probably get better camera performance out of this. Let's wait and watch. The In Note 1 uses MediaTek's Helio G85 SoC. It is possibly the most powerful chip you can buy in this price range now. And for the most part, you can see that in the performance as well. The benchmark numbers are in the same ballpark range as the Redmi Note 9 and the Realme Narzo 20. You can take a look at the Antutu Geekbench and AndroBench storage benchmark comparisons now. Now, these synthetic benchmarks only give you an indication of the performance. In real life testing, I found the In Note 1 was fairly good in daily usage. There were some stutters here and there though, and I believe this is largely due to the average hardware and software optimization. Thanks to the Light OS, when it doesn't lag occasionally, my daily usage experience was nimble and smooth. Most importantly, I was impressed with the gaming performance. No, it's not a beast, but I enjoyed playing rounds of Call of Duty with it even at medium settings. Mostly because the touchscreen experience was great and the gameplay was lag-free. Now, to stress test the phone, I did play the game for around an hour and it reached around 43 degrees, which is par for the course and on par with other smartphones in this price range as well. Coming to the mono speaker at the bottom, it can get really loud, but it does sound hollow due to the hollow bass. Now, the phone also comes with a 3.5mm port and I tested it with my One More triple drivers. Well, they sounded pretty average and the sound was not dynamic at all. These are a fun sounding pair of earphones, but the In Note 1 couldn't bring out the life in the sound, unfortunately. Wireless audio performance was largely similar. Essentially, don't expect the phone to wow you in the music department and you should be fine. The In Note 1 has a large and now standard 5000 mAh battery inside. I got around 7 hours 30 minutes to 8 hours of screen on time on most days. This is on par with my experience on other phones with 5000 mAh batteries in this price range. Essentially, it is good. As for the charging speeds, you get up to 18 watt charging speeds. Unfortunately, the charging situation is a little weird. The 18 watt charger sometimes faces fast charge and you won't know until you notice the indication. So when I tested it for the first time, the In Note 1 took around 3 hours to charge from 0 to 100. I tweeted it out and a couple of helpful reviewers in the community said the 18 watt charger is slow charging it and there is a bit of a bug. I need to redo it. So I retried it and fast charged the phone in exactly 2 hours 29 minutes. Now this is more in line with the 18 watt charging speeds. However, Micromax needs to ensure general users don't have to face such issues. Now, one area where Micromax totally kills it is with the network performance. Now, you do get 5 GHz Wi-Fi, which is actually absent in quite a few phones in this price range. So that's an important feature to add and it's vital. Now, I use the phone with an Airtel 4G network here in Gurgaon and it worked really well. And I got 4G plus on most occasions, which means that carrier aggregation is available and VO Wi-Fi worked really well as well. Now, if you are planning on using 2 SIM cards for VO Wi-Fi, then that also works as proved by Dhananjay Tech in his video. Now, the earpiece quality and the sound, the call quality in sounds is also pretty good. Now, why I'm talking about this in detail is because, most brands tend to overlook this fact, especially in budget phones. But with the Micromax in Note 1, Micromax has not done that, and I'm really glad about this. This is a basic feature for a smartphone. You're buying it as a phone, right, in the first place, so that matters. So now we're about to conclude our review, so let's take a look at the prices, and that's where Micromax has gone for the kill. You get the 4GB, 64GB variant of the phone for rupees 10,999 and the 4GB, 128GB variant for 12,499, which is on par with the pricing for most phones in this price range. Now, what Micromax has done over here is keep things simple and plain, give you the best processor that you can find in this price range, and marry that with stock Android to give you sort of a smooth experience. And for most part, that approach works. Yes, there are a few bugs, a couple of which were even resolved, and of course there are some design inconsistencies as well. But quite a few software experiences out there actually do come with bugs. Heck, even iOS 13 was riddled with bugs, and we've known about bugs on Oxygen OS, One UI, MIUI, all of these. So, I mean, what matters is that Micromax actually takes note of these bugs and sort of fixes them. And you know what? Micromax is actually doing it. This is a new and efficient company that we're talking about, which is swift at tackling user issues. And that's really, really good. If it can sustain the same approach, that will matter to the end consumers. Having said that, there are a few things that Micromax needs to fix in its next set of phones. Let me lay them out for you. Now, improving the build quality is paramount. Now, Micromax has to fix any quality control issues that are there in the assembly line, because there are retail units with problems. So we have to be cognizant of that fact. Secondly, they have to ensure that they have a relentless commitment to software updates and fixing software bugs as well. They've started on a good note. I hope they continue. I hope they bring Android 11 to Micromax in Note 1. So that will be vital as well. And finally, the after sales and service and support also has to be robust and good. So those are the three things that are very important for Micromax to do a great job. As for now, I still think that in this price range, the Poco M2 would be my favorite choice, primarily because it's got a better build quality, and of course, it's also got a better set of cameras. Now, if you are someone who wants stock Android, without fail, and of course, if you want a fairly good performance as well, the Micromax in Note 1 should serve your purpose. It shouldn't disappoint you. And if you are someone who wants to extend their support to Micromax just because it's an Indian brand, then I see no harm in that either, because this phone is sufficiently good. And if anyone is writing off Micromax so soon, then I'd be saying that they are making a mistake. Let's wait and watch what other products they have in store for us. I hope you guys liked our review, and if you do have any comments, do go into the comment section below and let us know what you think about it. Until next time, this is Ershad from MySmartPrice signing off. Goodbye and Godspeed, my friend.